Welcome to my live for today. So, the subject for today is birthright citizenship. Okay. And the reason I'm bringing this up today is because the U.S. Supreme Court has decided to take the birthright citizenship case. By the way, uh, Brian Lerner, immigration attorney for over 3 decades. Okay. So, any other Supreme Court would have totally dismissed this case outright, okay? Because birthright citizenship means that regardless of where your parents are from, regardless of who they are, regardless of what color they are, if someone is born in the United States on United States soil, they are a U.S. citizen. I mean, theoretically, someone can come from another country. The woman could be 9 months pregnant, come to the U.S. for 2 days, have the baby, and then go back to her country, and that baby's a U.S. citizen. Okay, that's in the 14th Amendment. So we have a U.S. Supreme Court who, decision after decision, has essentially written their own law. Okay, they've decided not to look at precedents. They've decided that whatever it is they want to do, they're going to just disregard all prior law, all prior decisions, and they're going to just make what they want. We kind of saw that starting with the presidential immunity, if you recall that case. There's no law in history of the United States that the president is immune from criminal prosecution. Yet, this Supreme Court, and of course, I'm not talking about the 3 liberals, this Supreme Court basically came out and said, we're going to make the decision of the ages. Like, if you have to say that, if you have to say how fantastic your decision is going to be, it's probably not too fantastic. Okay. And it certainly was not the decision of the ages. What it was a decision that made up the law, totally made it up. No, no prior law, nothing in the Constitution, no statutes, nothing. They just made it up. So that's what concerns me, that the U.S. Supreme Court is now going to take this birthright citizenship case. Because they don't take cases that have no disputes. Okay, obviously, if it gets up to the Supreme Court and they don't take it, which is most of the cases that get up there, they just send literally a 1-page document, say writ of certiorari denied. But they're taking this case. How can they possibly think that there is one scintilla of veracity to Trump's argument that depending where the parents are born, meaning if the parents are not born in the U.S. and a child's born here, the child can't be a U.S. citizen? How can there be any merit to that whatsoever? How can the United States Supreme Court look at that and say, yes, Trump has the authority as the president of the United States to claim that, and therefore all citizens, all people that were born in the U.S. but to parents not born in the U.S. are no longer U.S. citizens or won't be U.S. citizens? There's no legal way they can do that. It's part of the Constitution. So that is akin to them saying no more free speech. I mean, obviously, everybody and their mother knows that they can't do that, right? It's the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. Now, who can change the Constitution? It's not the Supreme Court. They have no authority to change the Constitution. They can rule what comes in front of them based on the Constitution. But what are they going to say? Are they going to say that the 14th Amendment is ambiguous, that it's not clear, that people born in the U.S. Are not U.S. citizens, that the framers of the 14th Amendment meant to include that? I'm telling you right now, if they come to a decision that says birthright citizenship no longer exists, or that the 14th Amendment only protects people born to white people or born to people who are born in the US, it may stand for a little while this Supreme Court exists, but is not going to exist forever like this. And what it is going to do is it's going to tell people like me that really the six conservatives on the court are really just puppets, because there's no legal justification for claiming that birthright citizenship does not exist. It is law 101. A first-year law student would know this, okay? And I have 30 years experience. But seriously speaking, if it happens and it becomes law, I can guarantee you that the next Supreme Court, which, will restore law, will restore respect in the Supreme Court, will restore the belief that it's not a puppet court. And I'm not just saying, decisions I always agree with. Obviously, I always disagree with some, I always agree with some, but there's legal justification for it. Here there's not. And this court has issued time and time again. Like, just take, for example, the Texas redistricting. Of course, there was a decision below which, showed that it was, unlawful, that they were doing it just to, give the Republicans an edge, that they can't do mid-decade redistricting. And the Supreme Court of the United States gets up and makes some silly arguments and grants Texas the ability to completely redistrict in the manner that they did. There's no real law for that. So when conservatives leave the Supreme Court, and hopefully liberals or conservatives that are not, Biden to Trump, but to the Constitution and to law, it'll be reversed. There's no way. Okay, there's no way it'll stand. Okay, I've given my piece. So even if it goes through, and even if they make some decision that is in fantasy land and cannot possibly stand, it may stand for a little while if they do that, but it certainly won't stand when the makeup of the court changes. Okay, everybody have a good day.